Montana State before helped lead MSU to the 1984 national championship, to then guys like Paul Dennehy, who also from Butte, quarterback the Cats to the 76 national championship, all the way up until now, where now you have the next one, the next favorite son from the mining city in Tommy Mellott. So I'll have that story. Tom Stuber's done a great job helping out some of our Bobcat coverage this year. He's going to write a story about the dichotomy of the bye, of the 3 weeks off. And so we'll bring in Andrew now to talk about that element of this, because, Andrew, I think that it's such a stark dichotomy. MSU will have had a full 3 weeks off from their victory over South Dakota State, which you were on the sidelines in attendance watching, to the matchup with North Dakota State. And the fact that they've played North Dakota State in the 2018 and 2019 playoffs, they're familiar with the Bison. The fact that Brent Vigen is an NDSU alum, and he also not only played but coached at North Dakota State and was the offensive coordinator on NDSU's first three-peat under Craig Bull. Before that, staff went to Wyoming. So he's been there before. Freddie Banks, the defensive coordinator, played at NDSU, so he's been a part of this before as well. The main benefit to me having 3 weeks off is you get at least the potential to get guys like Ty Okada, an All-Big Sky safety, Isaiah Fonse, All-American running back, Chase Benson, All-American defensive tackle. None of those guys I just named played against South Dakota State. That's 3 of Montana State's 5 best players. They didn't play. They have a chance to be back. That's a huge advantage. On the other hand, though, this team was riding the lightning, man. They had so much momentum coming into the South Dakota State game, coming out of the South Dakota State game. Now they got 3 weeks off. And I think that maybe disadvantage is accentuated by the fact that they're taking on a program that this is old hat for. This is the 9th time in 10 years North Dakota State's done this. They basically live in Frisco. They call it Fargo South for a reason. This is nothing new. They have this formula down better than anybody in the history of college football. So what do you think? I mean, what do you think of that element of this scenario? Because can Montana State, I guess the question is, can Montana State use this 3-week break as an advantage and not a disadvantage?
Well, the first thing I think is that it's good for us. I mean, it's good for the viewing public, just not even in terms of people getting healthy, maybe who didn't play in the semifinals or who have been out for a couple weeks, but just everybody getting healthy. I mean, everybody always talks about this, the part of the season. Everybody's got bumps and bruises. I think that having that time off to get healthy can only make it a better product in the national championship game. It is a really interesting sort of scenario for Montana State, right? I wonder how much Brent Vigen's time at North Dakota State and having been through that bye and having those weeks off and then getting his team back up. I mean, he has experienced that before, and of course North Dakota State's players mostly have because they've done it a bunch of times. But Brent Vigen has a bunch of experience with that, and if he's able to sort of pass that experience on to the players and get into the routine that he's done at North Dakota State so many times, I think Montana State should be able to reverse the effects of having the bye a little bit. It must be difficult to carry momentum through this, but I would be confident about that if I was Montana State.
Yeah, there's no question, and the brilliance of the Division I AA/FCS playoffs is that teams that are playing their best at the right time of year had so much success throughout most of the history of this tournament. That's sort of fallen flat because NDSU's dominated it for the last 10 years. But before that, you were just as likely to have a team that was just riding the lightning, kind of like Montana State is, win the whole thing as you were to have the dominant team. I mean, for every Georgia Southern that won multiple national championships, or every Youngstown State, or every App State, there was also Idaho State in 1981, or Montana State in 1984, or even the Grizz in 1995. I mean, that team has so much reverence around it. People forget that team was very good, but the loss that they had to Idaho during the regular season made that team either the 5 or the 6 seed in the bracket. And they only got home games in Missoula because the whole rest of the bracket sort of got decimated. So that's also a huge part of it, is when the bracket falls your way. Montana State made the bracket fall apart by their own doing, by beating the number 1 team in the country in Sam Houston on the road in Huntsville, Texas, which then let them have one last home game at Bobcat Stadium, let them host South Dakota State. So the sort of the essence of the hot team peaking at the right time, that's been a part of the narrative forever in this division, but just not so much the last 10 years. But I think you're right. This used to be a 16-team bracket, and the championship used to be played like the third week of December. There wasn't this break. Like when my brother played for the Grizz in 2009, they went straight to Chattanooga. I mean, it was like you won in the semifinals, you're going straight to Chattanooga. There was no break. So this is sort of new, and North Dakota State has certainly accentuated it and mastered it. But you're also right. I think that for the viewing public, for the quality of the product, this allows the two teams to be as healthy as possible, which is what you want.
Well, and not even for the viewing public. I mean, just as people who have followed this season, we want to see the best versions of these two teams play. And it's been a grueling season, Coulter. I mean, talking about the stuff going on with the pandemic and the scheduling, and you've played, 14 games to get here, or whatever it's been. We just want to see these teams at their best.
For sure. No question about it. The other question that I have consistently got, and I've been really thinking about this, where does this rank in terms of some of the most crazy, memorable, unpredictable, all the different adjectives you could use, sports stories in Montana? And one discussion I had over the break was about the concept of memory through the lens of the people that we know that are still alive in our lives. Because I read this short essay all about how it's really hard for the human brain to comprehend things that are in the past farther than the people that we know. In other words, if your oldest grandparent or relative or friend or acquaintance or whatever is in their 80s, it's pretty hard to have a real connection and a real definitive memory to something that happened before anyone that is alive is still alive. So if that makes sense. So basically, the human capacity for memory is about that 80-year span, but more importantly, if you know people of that age or you can relate to people from that era. And so a lot of times things get lost in the wash. The reason I bring that up is that I think that the craziest story in Montana sports history will remain the craziest story in Montana sports history forevermore. And that is that once upon a time, a couple crazy oil barons who struck oil up on the Montana High Line wanted to make Shelby, Montana, the Tulsa of the North. That's what they called it, the Tulsa of the North. And their number one lure besides the oil wells was to build a 30,000-seat wood stadium in the middle of Shelby. This is back in the 1920s. And to host the heavyweight championship fight between Jack Dempsey and Tommy Gibbons. And all of the fraud and ill will and sketchy actions and embezzlement and racketeering and all this crazy stuff. You want to read a great book, read the book Shelby's Folly. It's all about this phenomenon, this vision, and then what ended up being a complete calamity. From the ticketing to the people coming in on the trains to the way that the fight was executed to the ramifications it had on the community of Shelby, almost none of it was beneficial. Almost all of it was detrimental. And so the fact that, and here we are now with Shelby as just being a Class B town, as one of our good buddies, Luke, always says, the Paris of the High Line, as he likes to call it. But what could have been to Shelby and what it became are two completely different things. But that, to me, is the craziest story in Montana history. I don't really know if it'd ever be topped. To have a bunch of oil barons building a gigantic arena to host a heavyweight championship fight on the Montana High Line doesn't get any crazier than that to me. But I do think that in the modern era, this is certainly among those discussion points. This is certainly in the mix. In terms of impact on a global scale, you could say when Montanans have competed for and won Olympic medals, most notably when Eric Burgess, a Missoula native, won a gold medal in the aerials in the Winter Olympics back in 1998 in Nagano, Japan. I mean, that was a huge moment on a global scale. But I don't know if it necessarily has this broad narrative with all of these different parts of the storyline. The Cats' 1984 run to the title was one of the most unlikely runs ever. I mean, that was a 2-win team in 83 and a 2-win team in 85, but they caught lightning in a bottle and rode it all the way. And there are some parallels between that team and this team. There's also some parallels between 76, the Cat team back then that won the championship, and this team. The Grizz run in 95 and what that meant not only for the University of Montana, but the city of Missoula and the Big Sky Conference is not only one of the most memorable, but also one of the most impactful things that ever happened to this part of the world. And, of course, some of the great years under Robin Silvig as the head coach of the Lady Grizz. Those are, in the early to mid-1990s when he took a couple of Lady Grizz teams to the Sweet 16, when Montana was hosting NCAA tournament games. Shannon Kate, now Shannon Schwain, when she was a Kodak All-American. Those are pretty memorable and unforgettable stories. But I still think that this one, because of all of the richness of everything that's gone into it, is up there. And if they were to win it, I think it would absolutely be up there. So we'll continue to talk about that element of things here on Nuanez now throughout the rest of the week. We have all sorts of awesome guests coming up for you as well. But right now we got to get out because we're going to talk a little bit about the awards that are coming up on Friday night. The Buck Buchanan and Walter Payton Awards will be bestowed upon a couple different individuals, and there's a couple finalists for the Buck right here from the state of Montana. Montana junior linebacker Patrick O'Connell and Montana State senior linebacker Troy Anderson. We'll talk about that. And maybe we'll get to some documentaries. Who knows? Might have to save that for a Tuesday. But either way, keep it right here. It's ESPN Radio. Nuanez now.
Cable prices went through the roof. I had to dump the cable.
All you had to do was call Eagle Satellite at 406-728-9999 and get Dish TV for $57.99 and internet for $50.
Okay, I will. 406-728-9999. Can I get Dish TV for $57.99 and internet for $50? And it's installed free? Fantastic.
Call Eagle Satellite 728-9999.
Offer expires 4/13/22. Internet not a Dish product. Price does not include locals. Antenna optional.
Hi there, it's Les Schwab Tires, introducing the new Backcountry AT2 for a quieter ride with improved performance in wet conditions. Because when it comes to keeping your family safe on the road this winter, the right tires help you feel prepared for anything.
Mom? Mom? Hey, Mom.
Well, almost anything. Plus, save up to $130 when you buy Quatrac tires with financing. Les Schwab Tires. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. See leschwab.com/sale for details.
J&V Restaurant Supply is your home for everything kitchen. Whether you're a bear or a bobcat, an eagle or a Scotty, you can score big with J&V. Everything you need for your next tailgate or for that big family holiday party can be found in one of J&V's 3 locations in Bozeman, Billings, or Great Falls. With free delivery on all orders through the end of December, J&V is a proud sponsor of athletics across Montana and has been family owned for more than 45 years. Get everything you need for your next event at J&V or restaurant specialist. Visit jvrestaurant.com today. This is Colter Nuanez from ESPN Missoula, here to introduce the 3rd rendition of our Grizz Greats podcast series. Over the last few years, ESPN Missoula has presented long-form podcast series with historic interviews from Grizz Greats, the coaching tree, chronicling Judd Heathcote's awesome lineage for the University of Montana men's basketball program, to Grizz Greats, the silver anniversary of the 1995 national champion Grizzlies. This fall, ESPN Missoula is proud to present Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champion Grizzlies. It's been 20 years since Montana last captured a Division I football title, and many men who contributed to that epic run back in 2001 remain memorable figures in the history of the Grizz football program. Please join me, Colter Nuanez, for a 20-part podcast series chronicling the 20th anniversary of Montana's 2001 national championship. Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary, is proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and First Security Bank of Missoula.
Hey, son. How are you feeling?
I'm fine, Pops.
What's on your mind?
I can't explain it. Navigating without a compass, eyes waiting, started to wonder. Metamorphosis, the loss of who you thought you was.
When your kid can't find the language, help them find the lyrics. Listen to the Sound It Out album and get tips and tools to start a conversation at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
It's Nuanez now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula. Watch the show statewide on SWX Montana Television.
There's a lot of pretty funny 90s country songs about Texas. Don't be annoyed if you hear those throughout the week. We're just going back to Texas for the second time in a month. If you know me, you know I shouldn't say that. Texas isn't my favorite place in the world, but that's mostly has nothing to do with Texas. It has to do with my disorientation when there's no mountains and high body temperature and dislike of massive metroplexes and traffic. But we're going to Frisco on Saturday, so it should be a fun one. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. I'm Colter Nuanez, marching through the Montana Football Hour, the first Montana Football Hour of 2022, the last Montana Football Hour for, I guess that's not true. We'll probably do one on Monday because we get back from the National Championship. So look at us and look at you. Montana Football Hour, presented by Stockman Bank of Montana. Let Stockman Bank show you Montana's brand of banking today. It's also presented by Brett's RV and Marine. Brett's RV and Marine is the largest RV and boat dealership in 5 states. The Brett's family has owned and operated their stores since 1967, providing exceptional service for more than 50 years. You can call 833-BRETTS-RV or shop online 24/7 at brettsrv.com. A lot more to get to, and we will because we have a whole week to do it. But one thing that's on the horizon even before the FCS National Championship game is the FCS National Awards, specifically the Walter Payton Award, which Eric Berrier, a quarterback from Eastern Washington, who people in the state of Montana are very, very familiar with, is up for, and I would say a front runner for. And the Buck Buchanan Award includes a pair of the 3 finalists that are from the state of Montana. Not just Montana and Montana State football players, but guys who grew up in the state and played high school football in the state. Patrick O'Connell, a Kalispell native, who is a outside linebacker for the Grizzlies, a junior, is one of the 2 finalists. And Troy Anderson, inside linebacker from Dillon, from Montana State, another one of the finalists. And I'll tell you this. First of all, I used to have a vote in this. I don't anymore. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole again. Don't want to waste your time. That's an off-season topic. But if the voting was during or after the playoffs leading, Anderson would win this award running away. I thought he certainly performed at an outstanding level during these playoffs, particularly against South Dakota State. I thought it was one of, if not the best games of his Bobcat career. Like my brother texted me after he had the 4th down stop in the first quarter and then the big thud hit on the Megatron-looking tight end from South Dakota State. Brooks just texted, give the guy the buck right now. Unfortunately, the voting was earlier on this year. That said, though, I think that opens it up for, I'll give you this. I think a Montana guy is going to win this, either O'Connell or Anderson. But I want to ask Andrew Houghton, our producer here at ESPN Missoula, as well as Skyline Sports, what do you think? Because on one hand, I think that Troy Anderson has really good numbers. He's stacked those numbers a lot by getting to play 3 extra playoff games. And, he's had 10 tackles plus in each one, so he's going to have 150 tackles by the time this year's all said and done. He's also Troy Anderson. What he's accomplished in his career, everybody in the country has followed it and know about it and how unorthodox it is. But Patrick O'Connell had arguably as good, if not better, regular season numbers. And I would actually say until the playoffs started, Patrick O'Connell was better at the position he plays in the Grizz defense than Troy Anderson. Only because, like Troy Anderson, everything he does, so much of what he does is not reflected in statistics, whereas Patrick O'Connell, to have 100-plus tackles and 20-plus tackles for loss and 14-plus sacks, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a guy that plays on the edge as a pass rush specialist who still gets 100 tackles in a season. So O'Connell, he's justifiable as well. What do you think? What are you leaning towards? What do you think is going to win this?
Well, Colter, the one thing to consider, like you said, is that the voting happened at the end of the regular season rather than in the playoffs. And I think that's a little bit of a point in Patrick O'Connell's favor because, of course, the last view that voters had of these 2 guys were of the Grizz winning the brawl and the Grizz defense just stomping on the Cats in that game. The other thing to consider, and we're looking at this in comparison to, of course, Troy Anderson's already won the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year award. But the other thing to consider here.
So what about that element, though? Just to pause you real quick, and this is more of just a funny coincidence, and also just a sort of a referendum on the way that all this, or I guess not the referendum. It's a dichotomy of the way that this stuff is chosen. So let's say Patrick O'Connell won the Buck Buchanan Award.
Right.
This would be, I believe, the 4th or maybe even 5th time that the Big Sky Conference MVP was not the Buck Buchanan Award winner, yet the Buck Buchanan Award winner came from the Big Sky Conference.
Well, and here's the difference, Coulter. The coaches vote for the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year award. The Buck is a mixture of sports info guys, media guys, people like that. The coaches have a really good view of what is happening in the Big Sky Conference, and we can quibble about some of their selections, but they're watching Troy Anderson and evaluating his play from a coach's performance.
Yep.
And I just think when you're looking at Troy Anderson and everything that he can do on the field, I mean, and that is why he's so valuable to Montana State. But the stats don't reflect a lot of that.
That's right.
As opposed to, you know, if you're a sports information director in the Colonial Athletic Association, how much tape are you watching of these guys? And a lot of times it comes down to the stats in that case. And this is a fascinating question for me. I remember when Dante Olson was contending for the Buck, I wrote a story at Skyline Sports about, like, man, what does it take to actually win the Buck Buchanan Award? If you lead the country in sacks, how often does that guy win the Buck? If you play on a winning team, how important is that to winning the Buck? I just love looking at that stuff. And, man, if you're talking about the end of the regular season and you're talking about guys who maybe haven't watched a lot of tape of these guys, I think Patrick O'Connell really has the advantage. His stats are more, they jump off the page at you. And if that's what you're going on, it's tough to vote against Patrick O'Connell. Of course, the dark horse here is Isaiah Land, the third finalist from Florida A&M, has the biggest jump off the page stats of all. I mean, 19 sacks. He led the country in sacks.
Right.
So maybe if we've got guys voting who haven't watched O'Connell or Anderson, maybe he sneaks in there. But I think I would give the edge to Patrick O'Connell for a couple reasons we just talked about.
Yeah, other Big Sky / non-Buck Buchanan Award winners. In 2003, Kane Ione won the Big Sky Conference Defensive MVP. Jared Allen won the Buck Buchanan Award. In 2012, this was the most anomalous of them all. Jody Owens from Montana State was the Big Sky Conference MVP, and Caleb Schreibeis, his teammate, was the Buck Buchanan Award winner. That's pretty crazy as well. I'm trying to think of other times that this has happened. Oh, Tyrone Holmes was not the Big Sky Conference Defensive Player of the Year when he won the, I guess it was the FCS Defensive Player of the Year, because that was the one year when they had transitioned the award, so it wasn't specifically called the Buck.
Yeah, that was like 2016, 2017.
I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
No, it was 2016. You're right. It was 2016 because it was before they had instituted the Jerry Rice Award. They hadn't named it yet. And the Walter Payton and Buck Buchanan Awards, something had happened with the family that like sponsors those, and the naming rights had not crossed over yet. So there's this one year where the FCS Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year won the award that was named just that. And it's sort of silly, right? Like they should just retrospectively give Tyrone Holmes a Buck Buchanan Award, but he doesn't have one, even though he was the FCS Defensive Player of the Year. But there's a couple other examples. Maybe we'll get to that as well. But I think if the voting would have happened after the first couple rounds of the playoffs or after the semifinal round of the playoffs, Troy Anderson is the Buck Buchanan Award winner. But I agree with Andrew. I actually think that Patrick O'Connell is the inside track. We'll find out Friday night in Frisco, Texas. Hour one in the books. That is the Montana Football Hour presented by Stockman Bank. Let Stockman Bank show you Montana's brand of banking today, as well as Brett's RV and Marine, locally owned and operated for 54 years. You can swing on down to Brett's RV and Marine in Missoula at 4800 Grand Creek Road. Appreciate both of them for being a part of the Montana Football Hour here on Nuanez Now. It's ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. Hour one in the books. Hour two coming at you. Big-time college football. It's going crazy, both because of the results and because of the decisions of the players to play or not play. Plus, today, the 15th anniversary of Nick Saban being hired as the head coach of Alabama. Our dynasty is good for college football. And what the hell happened to Antonio Brown's shirt? The Monday afternoon quarterback with Marty Morningweg coming at you. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Choosing where to bank is a no-brainer. Choose the bank that's been helping Western Montana grow since 1907. Choose Farmer State Bank. We have a lot more to offer than just history. Count on Farmer State Bank for innovative traditional, mobile, and online products designed to meet your needs. For personal banking options or business solutions, choose Farmer State Bank. 9 brick-and-mortar locations and online at farmersebank.com. An equal housing lender and member FDIC.
When it comes to the inside scoop on Montana State athletics, few know more than SWX Montana's Alex Eshelman. Tune in to Nuanez now every Wednesday during the 4 o'clock hour on ESPN 102.9 Missoula for the Montana State Minute as Alex and Coulter Nuanez break down everything Bobcats.
I think in speaking with a bunch of the guys throughout these past 2 weeks and just being around them in terms of when they're going out and doing community service, I was able to just see them in a different light in comparison to watching them play on the football field. And obviously, they're all such great guys. And I think that we're all human. That would hurt. If I were playing in that game and lost to the Grizz, obviously, that's not going to be something fun that they will want to remember. However, playoff season is a completely different ball game, and they've said it all week long. Everyone is 0-0. They are starting fresh, and it's win or go home.
What grows in the forest? Trees? Sure. Know what else grows in the forest? Our imagination, our sense of wonder, and our family bonds grow too. Because when we disconnect from this and connect with this, we reconnect with each other. The forest is closer than you think. Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana. KKVU HD3 Stevensville and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
With the National Championship football game on the horizon, the rivalry doubleheader for hoops has been pushed back a day. Happy New Year. I'm Coulter Nuanez. Montana State plays in the FCS National Title game for the first time since 1984 in Frisco, Texas on Saturday. Because of that historic afternoon, the basketball doubleheader between Montana and Montana State, originally scheduled for Saturday in Bozeman, has been moved to Sunday. The Lady Grizz and the Montana State women, each who got swept this past weekend, will look to bounce back with a Sunday matinee at 1 p.m. The men's teams will square off at 5 p.m. Sunday from Brick Breeden Fieldhouse. The North Dakota State-Montana State National Championship football game kicks off at 10 a.m. from Toyota Stadium in Frisco on Saturday. MSU also rescheduled its annual Bobcat Hall of Fame induction ceremony to be celebrated at a later date. Over the weekend, the Division I women's teams from the Treasure State hit a rough patch. The Lady Grizz started the season 9-2, but they lost 68-61 at Idaho State Thursday and 66-56 at Weber State Saturday. The defending Big Sky champion Bengals of ISU beat Montana State 67-57 on Saturday, 2 days after the Bobcats fell 68-63 at Weber State. The Montana men had an outstanding weekend, blasting Idaho State 78-54 before outlasting Weber State 74-72. Montana State lost 85-75 to Weber Thursday, but bounced back for a 60-40 win over Idaho State on Saturday. This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory.
If you're gonna play in Texas, you gotta have a fiddle in the band. That lead guitar is hot, but not for Louisiana man. So roll's enough that both are faded love, and let's all dance. If you're gonna play in Texas, you gotta have a fiddle in the band.
Little Alabama for you, bringing you back here on a Monday. Happy New Year, everybody. And thanks so much for hanging out with us to get your 2022 underway. It was a great break, great time away for me, and so happy to be back, but also so happy to be continuing to talk football. Usually when we go to the new year, we're talking all hoops, and we're certainly going to have a bunch of hoops coverage because Big Sky Conference play is in full force. I went to the Grizz basketball games both Thursday and Saturday. Also watched some of the Montana State games over the weekend, and it's the Cat Grizz games on Sunday here in Missoula in Bozeman, as well. They've been rescheduled from Saturday to Sunday, And all the Montana schools, they also have games on Thursday against Eastern Washington and Idaho, respectively. So we'll be hearing from all the basketball coaches this week. But this show right here, this is all football all the time. So we continue on talking both college and NFL football here on Nuanez Now. You missed anything in the first hour of the show? You can find it on the podcast, which is proudly presented by Sportsbet Montana and Blackfoot Communications. This is Nuanez Now, by the way. I'm out of practice. I haven't been here in 2 weeks, but you already knew. You already know what you're listening to. But it's time now for the first Monday afternoon quarterback of 2022 with our good friend Marty Morningweg. Coach, thanks so much for being here, man. How you doing? How was your holidays?
2022, I'll tell you what is exciting in it with the college games and the NFL games. Coulter, our holidays were awesome. I had all 4 kids in. All 4 of my kids are young, single, and can run and gun. All the flights got in.
That's good.
And all the flights got out. It was crazy. I had one from New York City, one from Wichita Falls, Texas, and then 2 drove. Of course, my mother-in-law from Phoenix, and then they all got out. Quite a few delays. I'm not sure there was one that was not delayed.
Oh, man.
Hopefully, you're getting to where you need to go on Friday.
Oh, man, I know. We're already sweating it. We're leaving at 10:30 on Friday morning, and we got to be to Frisco by 10:10 on Saturday. So it's going to be tight. We might be buying one-ways at the airport. We'll see. We'll get there. I promise you we will figure out a way to get there. But it is fascinating considering you have kids all over the country now. So I'm glad it all went well. Christmas or New Year's? Are you more into one or the other?
Christmas.
Yeah, you're into Christmas. Man, me too.
I like the Christmas. There's nothing like the family, close friends on Christmas. New Year's Eve, maybe it's just me, and maybe it was growing up.
Sure.
I just didn't go out much
No.
on New Year's Eve because all of the crazies
That's right.
were out there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'd be watching, 2 or 3 hours early. I grew up in the West Coast, the New York City, dropping the big ball at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So that was my New Year's Eve typically, and still is to some extent.
We're going to get into all the things that happened in the NFL yesterday and throughout the last couple weeks. But first, college football is in what some people think is the greatest time of year. And when it comes to the college football playoff and some of the big-time bowl games, I agree. I love it. But also, and I also love just having something on to watch. If it's watching football is better than not watching football for sure. But then I couldn't help but think, especially with some of these withdrawals, some of these teams opting out, some of the players opting out, there's been some pretty interesting bowl games the last couple weeks, Coach. You're talking teams that are like 5-8, 5-7 in bowl games. I don't really know. What do you think of that, though? Because, obviously everybody loves the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, but is college football diluting itself with all these bowls right now?
Well, I'll tell you, Coulter, I'm a little bit more old school. Back in the day, a bowl game was a great reward for a heck of a season. And now you've got Rutgers, who was 5-7, slipping in there. And I think to qualify, you have to win 6 games. Well, back in the day,
right,
that wasn't a heck of a year. A heck of a year was 8, 9, 10 wins.
That's right.
And so you got to see less bowl games, but way better teams and some great matchups.
People forget too that before there was the FCS/Division I AA division, there was bowl games for all levels of Division I and Division II football. When you were at the University of Montana in the early 1980s, that was sort of when it first started to change. Right. But even you guys played in a bowl game, right? Didn't you guys go to a bowl game in Japan or something like that?
Mirage Bowl.
Yeah, that's
played
right.
The 19th ranked Army team and had them on the ropes. We cut it to 7 with about 4.5 minutes left. And then it was slow death. You remember, they still are to some extent. They were in the wishbone and first down, second down, third down. If it was 4th and 1, they went for it, and it was just slow death the rest of the way there. But yeah, a heck of a bowl game that was, the Mirage Bowl. And then, look, there were a bunch of 6, 7, 8 win teams that just didn't go to bowls.
Totally.
And that was the way it was. It was like I said, it was a heck of a reward for a heck of a season. And then, Coulter, people started figuring out they could make a bunch of money on some of these bowl games with 7, 8 win teams. Then all of a sudden you get 6 win teams in, and now you get 5 win teams in.
Yeah, it's perplexing to say the least, but to finish that point, too, about some of the old school, I mean, like the Grizzlies, for example, they won the Camellia Bowl back in 1969 and 1970. That was when there was bowl games that included Division II teams. I believe that when Montana State won the 56 national championship for sure, and maybe even 76 as well, it was the Aluminum Bowl. I think that was what they won. Even some of the playoff games in the semifinals, like Montana State when they beat North Dakota State 76, that was the Grantland Rice Bowl. So the bowls have a lot of history, and I get why people love some of them. I just don't really know what the necessity or validity of, like the tofu sushi bowl on a Tuesday or whatever, between these two teams from it's strange. It's definitely strange. But probably the lightning rod comment of the last couple weeks came from the guys at College Game Day from the mothership here at ESPN Radio. And Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard and those guys, they were kind of saying, they were being a little old school and saying, hey, I think that if you have one last chance to play with your teammates, you should. And they were sort of scrutinizing these guys that are opting out. And so I don't really know where I stand on this, because I think on one hand, you're only going to be a 21-year-old, 22-year-old one time. You're only going to have a chance to play with your college teammates in a bowl game once or, a couple times, whatever. When it's the last one, that's the last one. But on the other hand, some of these guys from big-time programs, like at Ohio State, they have multiple guys that are surefire first-round picks. So I don't know if I would play in the bowl game if I was one of those guys, like Chris Olave, the outstanding receiver. I mean, he's going to be top 15, top 20 pick. He's got millions of dollars riding on the line. And Ohio State's not in the college football playoff, albeit the Rose Bowl is a pretty good consolation prize. So I don't know. I think that on one hand, maybe you're sacrificing some good memories, but on the other hand, I wouldn't want to sacrifice my financial future either. So, I mean, where are we at with these guys opting out of bowl games?
I'll tell you what, Coulter, I'm old school there as well. Nothing is more important than the team, and you start what you finish. However, I'm a little bit like you, because some of those first guys several years ago, many years ago really, chose to opt out. Or like Bosa with Ohio State.
Sure.
He chose not to come back fully healthy from an injury down the stretch and into the playoffs. I understand that just a little bit. Now, you can also, the school can pay for it.
Right.
One of those insurance policies as well. But those insurance policies only cover up to some extent, like if you never play again.
Right.
Rather than just a major injury. So here's what happens. If you're an NFL coach, the young man will get questioned on that.
For sure.
And what his thought process is. And then by the time the evaluations come down the chute, everybody has sort of put that in the background, as long as the young man explained himself pretty well, because you want the best player. Right? But that other half of me is like you, Coulter. Team first. Nothing comes between that team and anything else. So here's my last point on that. Where does it stop? Let's say you're a bona fide first-round pick and you take a bowl game off. Well, 3 years from now, is there going to be a man take the last 3 ball games? Because he's already got all of his film banked. He's a surefire first-round pick. All of a sudden, is a kid going to take the last half of the year off? Where does it end?
Right. And it's a great point. And I also think that even if it is a prudent decision for your NFL future, I think that down the road, 25 years later, I think guys will look back and they'll regret it. They'll regret not having done it.
Yeah, and then the debaters, right? The debaters will come in. I was watching the football game. A really good quarterback got injured, and I don't know what the extent of the injury is.
Sure.
But it looked like something happened.
They hurt his ankle, yeah.
To his leg.
Yep.
And you're going, okay, well, that's why. But that's one in several thousand probably that are going to go through that. I've seen some of these young men get hurt in their workouts leading up to the combine.
That's true. It's true.
There's been kids get hurt in the Senior Bowl and the East-West Bowl, and all of those bowl games leading up to the draft as well. So where does it end? And I've always been the team, Coulter.
Monday afternoon quarterback, a good friend, Marty Morningweg, in studio with me, Coulter Nuanez, here on Nuanez Now. A message from one of our loyal listeners, a good friend, Pete. He reminds me that Montana lost the Camellia Bowls, both 1969 and 1970 against North Dakota State, and a big factor in that was that in those days, if you accepted a bowl invite, nobody that had gone to a junior college could play in the bowl, and Montana had a lot of junior college guys back in that late 1960s era. So, interesting. Thank you, Pete, for the stat correction and the piece of info there. Appreciate that. Last thing for you on this, you worked in the NFL for 25 years plus, and I'm sure certainly had a hand in at least scouting guys and who you're going to draft and who you're going to take and stuff like that. When you were scouting guys at the college level, how much of their injury history or injury prevalence went into just your evaluations of them?
Coaches tend to evaluate the film,
right,
production, and workouts.
Right.
We want the very best player. And then the scouts and all of our medical people, all these players that go to the combine go through a whole full medical.
Sure.
At the combine.
Extensive.
Yes.
So, and sometimes they find stuff that guys didn't even know about. Like there was that big D tackle from Michigan a couple of years ago. He had a heart murmur and he dropped in the draft. So yeah, sometimes it's very intensive physicals.
It is. And so those do come into play. However, you rely on your experts, your physicians, your doctors, your trainers, and they're not always right.
Yeah.
I remember a great runner coming out. And our doctors said, a lot of arthritis in that knee, maybe 4 or 5 year career. The kid went on to play 11 years and didn't miss a game.
Right.
I mean, it felt like. So I think all these injuries, different people handle them a little. I think most guys probably would have been a 4 or 5 career.
Right.
This young man was pretty special. So, yeah, it does come up. And you rely on your medical people to kind of crystal ball some of these injuries.
I think it's also easy now to say, with this age of overexposure, all these kids, they know if you're a receiver at Ohio State, maybe not directly, but secondarily, you've been contacted by agents and all these different things. You know exactly where you're going to get slotted. You probably even know some of the teams that are interested in you before you're even into the draft process. So, but the cynic in me wants to say, well, that's just ruining just the perspective for these guys. But then I harken back to like a story like Bill Kohler told me once upon a time, who's now the defensive line coach for the Denver Broncos, who played at Montana State in the early 1970s. And that was when the AFL had just started, and he got drafted by the Chicago Fire, and they tried to hide him in a hotel room so that no one could come talk to him before the NFL draft. And then he famously becomes the first, and I believe actually only second ever, and the first of all time first-round draft picks out of the Big Sky Conference, and went on to have a great career in the NFL. Has been coaching ever since. But so I guess on one hand you'd say, well, everybody knows now because of Twitter and Facebook, but that was 50 years ago, and guys, they were hiding him in a hotel room, so maybe it's not any different than it ever was.
Those are some of the great stories, both in the NFL and especially at college, when the fellows would go hide the young men out, and it was crazy back then, some of those stories, and I miss that by just probably a half a generation.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the underclassmen that come out, if you remember when that was first legal, most of the underclassmen were drafted fairly high, and most of them drafted, and then within just 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden everybody and their mother is coming out.
Right.
And like half of these young men didn't even get drafted. Some had a hard time trying to get even a look into camp.
Right.
And so it sort of balances itself out just a little bit. And it's what they did is they made it better. An underclassman can put his film in and have it evaluated by some of these ex-GMs and ex-coaches and get a pretty good feel of where they're going to be drafted. But it doesn't always work out because things do change. And then some of their background culture comes into play, whether they move up or sometimes significantly downwards.
And that's the thing I think that people fail to realize, too, is that there's only 260 players that get drafted in the league each year. We think of the draft so much more expansive than like the NBA because there's 7 rounds instead of just 2. But 260 players, when you have 22 positions on a football field, is not that much. And, like, for example, I think that they invite 330 guys to the combine. So you're talking like 75 guys are going to the combine. The premier showcase and still not even getting drafted. So I do think that there's a lot of ins and outs to all this. But I do think that, you would probably agree. If you are a hard worker that's produced at a high level and you've kept your nose clean, regardless of anything, unless you have a completely catastrophic career-ending injury, most likely what you've done is going to speak for itself when it comes draft time.
Yes. However, right now, there's about 80 guys that think they're going into the first round.
Right, totally.
You know, and there's some reasons for that. These agents that are sort of bidding on these guys, trying to get them with their agency, are telling them, I will get you into the first round and these type of things to acquire these young men. And so sometimes the jaw drops when they're drafted a couple rounds later than their close friends and mothers and dads an agent has told them.
Monday afternoon quarterback, Coach Marty Morningweg in studio with us here on Nuanez Now. It's ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. I'm Colter Nuanez. Happy New Year to everybody. One last college question, Coach. Today is the 15th anniversary of Nick Saban getting hired to Alabama. And pretty crazy the saga that Saban went through, winning a national championship at LSU, diving into the NFL, and having it not go his way. But a lot of the things that happened were out of his control, from the Drew Brees injury to the erosion of Dante Culpepper from an all-pro to not being able to do much of anything. But all that said, since returning to the college game, Saban has revived one of the most tradition-laden programs in the country and turned them into the juggernaut that everybody thought that they maybe could be again, but maybe now at an even higher level. Alabama will play for its 7th national championship since 2009, which is unbelievable to really think about. But then you think about this level of football that we love so much here at the Big Sky and FCS levels. And here North Dakota State is, and they're gunning for their 9th championship in the last 10 years. I mean, it's automatic. Book it. NDSU's playing for the title, and chances are they're winning the title. My question for you, though, is that a good thing for college football? The fact that there are these 2 unbelievable, unbreakable dynasties that are dominating the entire Division I landscape?
I personally think it's a great thing for many reasons. First of all, there are many things that are outside of your control in the NFL as a head football coach. In college, there's less, much less things that are out of your control. So I do know this. There are some coaches that are built to coach in the NFL. Others are built to coach in college. A very select few can do both, like the great Jimmy Johnson, among a select few others. And then the dynasty part. Alabama and North Dakota State have done things better than anybody else.
That's right.
And way more consistent. So everything you get in athletics, you earn it. So they have earned it. Now, here's the challenge. For about half a decade, it should have been, and probably is, how do we knock Alabama off?
That's right.
How do we knock North Dakota State off? And that's your whole plan. Your whole plan of building a program is that.
It is.
And Georgia is chasing them. They're on their heels.
And look at the title games. Montana State was built in the image of North Dakota State. That's how Jeff Choate, the previous coach, wanted to build it. And then they went out and hired a former North Dakota State coach to coach him, and now he's got him in the national championship. It's the exact same thing with Georgia. Kirby Smart, coach for Saban. They are built in the image of Alabama. And so you're right. I mean, everybody that's been chasing, the teams that have had the most success trying to chase, basically have just copied what Alabama and North Dakota State have done.
Great point, however, in the NFL. The greatest coach living, Bill Belichick, probably. Many of his assistants have gone on and stumbled, and some stumbled badly.
That's true.
Because there's so many things that are out of your control in the NFL as a head coach. Bill Belichick, he's responsible for both personnel, the whole operation, as well as the football schemes. Other coaches aren't as involved in the personnel and how the whole operation is run. And those things go a long, long way.
Monday afternoon quarterback here on Nuanez Now. It's presented in part by Alpine Touch. Tailgating season continues because it's college football season still. I know you got some meat to spice up, whether it's the FBS or FCS national championship games. You're going to want some Alpine Touch, Montana Special Spice. We got some for you. Caller number 3. Call us right now, 406-888-1029. That's 888-1029. We'll have a Grand Slam package from Alpine Touch shipped straight to your doorstep. So give us a call right now. Caller number 3, 888-1029. We will dive into the NFL. You talk about things that are out of your control. How about a guy taking off his shirt and his pads in the middle of a football game? Never seen anything like this in my life. Don't think we'll ever see anything like it again. Antonio Brown saga playoff clinchers and remaining contenders and more here on Nuanez Now. Keep it right here, Monday afternoon quarterback, ESPN Radio. Buying or selling a home can be an intimidating task. Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team of Windermere Real Estate are here to make you feel comfortable no matter where you're at in the process. The official realtors of Grizzly Athletics have more than 4 decades of experience in Western Montana. Brent and his team can not only find you your perfect home or buyer, but they can also teach you about the great city of Missoula and its tradition-laden sports teams. The Wahlberg team works as a family to help fulfill your real estate needs all over Western Montana. If you need help with residential, land, investment, or commercial, give Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team a call today. Part of the glory of building a business comes from leaving a legacy to ensure your business continues thriving into the future. Have you asked yourself lately, what is your plan? Forming a personalized business succession plan is essential to know the passion you put into your business will carry on. Nick Tabor at Westpac Wealth is here to help you navigate all your business succession and retirement planning needs. Give Nick a call at 728-6699 and keep the spirit of possibility vibrant while making your future more tax efficient with a personalized business succession and retirement plan for you.
Like most Montanans, we love a good steak. And because we're the Montana Club, we take the steaks we serve very seriously. We're confident to say that our custom grilled steaks are as good a steak as you're going to get. Now we're proud to add regularly sourced, naturally raised Castle Rock bison ribeye to our selection. And remember, the Montana Club steak entrees include the sides. Come into the Montana Club today for an unrivaled steak experience. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
School is back in session, and it's time to start rallying around those high school heroes. Students, know a high schooler who excels in the classroom, who exemplifies school and community spirit? Nominations for the Mattress Firm Student of the Year are now being accepted. A new student will be selected for each week of the fall and spring semesters, and they'll not only get a chance to share their story live on ESPN Radio each week, but they'll also have a chance at a college scholarship at the end of the school year. Submit your Mattress Firm Student Athlete of the Week at mattressfirmmt.com.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace. Learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's producer Tommy from Nuanez Now. Did you know you don't even need a radio to listen to Nuanez Now? You can watch Nuanez Now all around the state of Montana on SWX television, channel 199 on Charter or 23.3 on terrestrial television. Plus, you can stream every minute of Nuanez Now live on YouTube. Tune into the stream on 1029ESPN.com or find ESPN Missoula on the TuneIn Radio app. 4 to 6 weekdays on 1029 ESPN Radio.
One of our discussion points during break was, you'll see a concert by anybody. Who would it be? And, I gave some of my obvious answers. I'd love to see Metallica before they were all said and done. I'd love to see a little Elton John before he stopped tour. Maybe the Eagles if they ever got back together. I'm definitely going to go to Santana here in April. But probably the most unlikely answer I surprised everybody at the party with was, I'd love to see me some Vince Gill, man. I love Vince Gill. Prairie League into Vince Gill. I mean, Great songwriter, great voice. And if he ever came around, I would definitely pony up and go see some Vince Gill in action. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. Continuation of the Monday afternoon quarterback. You know, if we're listening to country music on a Monday, it's because our good friend, Marty Morningweg, is in studio. Longtime NFL coach, former University of Montana quarterback. Coach, if you could go see anybody, who would it be?
Elvis.
Oh, that's a great one.
Elvis lives. Yeah. You know, I always thought, growing up, I kind of liked Elvis, probably because mom and dad liked Elvis.
Sure.
Right? And I was a sophomore in high school, and we were in training camp when Elvis passed away, apparently passed away, right?
Right.
Right? And I said, doggone it, I always thought I'd just head down to Vegas when I got a little older and catch a show from him. Other than that, it would be a man that I've seen many times, Willie Nelson.
Oh, yeah.
He's back in the day now, he would start every concert off with Whiskey River.
Yeah.
And then he would end about 4 hours later with Whiskey River. So we had a blast going to see him down in the green, in Watsonville, really, down by the ocean when I was in high school. Pretty much every year we'd try to get some, and it was crazy now. I mean, crazy. There were 30, 40,000 people there. And, you know, some of the things I saw, I learned quite a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, in Watsonville when I was, 15, 16, 17 years old.
Well, it's funny. Retrospectively, the second concert I ever went to in my whole life, when I was probably 10, maybe 11 years old, is not old at all. I went with my parents to Willie Nelson when he came to Missoula.
Bingo.
I had no appreciation for it though, because I was in 4th grade. You know, I would love to see that. Now, the only thing I remember from that concert was a couple women threw some undergarments up on the stage, and I didn't get it. I didn't get what was happening because I was 10 years old. But I would love to see Willie if he came back around. Speaking of Elvis, though. Over the holiday break, I think myself and almost everybody that likes the NFL at least knew about, if not watched, the All Madden documentary that played on Christmas Day on Fox. And unfortunately, John Madden, an icon among icons in the NFL, passed away just a couple days after that came out. But what a life. I mean, he's 86 years old. He's among, if not the most impactful people in terms of teaching the game to the masses as anybody in NFL history. But I thought Roger Goodell in that film had a great line. He said, Elvis Presley is to rock and roll what John Madden is to the NFL. John Madden is the king. He brought it to the masses. And, from the fact that Madden stepped away at such a young age when he's 42 as a coach, but then wanted to define himself as a coach in this commentator role for another 40 years is amazing. So you were in the NFL for 25 plus years. Did you ever cross paths with Coach Madden? Did you ever get to know him or talk to him or anything?
Well, I absolutely crossed paths with him. You know, when I was coordinating for the San Francisco 49ers, I lived in Pleasanton, California. Mm-hmm. And by that time, John Madden had owned half of Pleasanton. It was sort of farmland and sort of was getting developed at the time. And so that's where he lived, and we crossed paths several different times. He was so young as a head coach in the NFL.
For sure.
And then won a World's Championship and stepped away and went into the broadcasting booth, and he just did it seamlessly. And I still remember, boom.
That's right.
And, I mean, you enjoyed listening to him. And then the Madden game.
Right, of course.
I mean, it kept it going and going. And I was in the NFL for, I believe, 26 years. I might have to go recount that. And John Madden was, on every committee still.
Sure.
He was on every committee. So back behind the scenes, John Madden was still running to some extent some of the things that went on in the NFL.
Absolutely. And I think that the game of Madden taught so many kids at a young age just basic concepts of football. I mean, I learned what a cover 3 was, what a cover 2 was, what two-man deep, what a high safety is, all that stuff. Just from, you pick the play. And those the original Madden games, they weren't that complex. You didn't have very many blitzes, but it taught you the basic concepts of offense and defense, what a stretch play is, what a gap scheme is. And I think that the influence he had on young people is just indelible. I think he taught millions of people more about the game of football than they ever would have known otherwise.
Yeah, the man did much for football, period. Young, middle-aged, and old.
Yeah. One of the great articles, I think, ever written in Sports Illustrated is called The Busman's Holiday. It's by Peter King. It was written in the late 1980s. Peter King, one of the foremost writers of the NFL for years and years and years at Sports Illustrated. And now, actually, in fact, the Monday morning quarterback, where we sort of parlayed the name of this Monday afternoon quarterback segment from. But Peter King rode the bus. John Madden famously was scared of planes, and he never rode a plane from 1982 on. He rode the bus across the country all the time. And Peter King rode the bus with him one time. And that story, I reread it over the break. And what an awesome story, man. I think that it's not even just about the funny stuff that John Madden says or like his quirky routines or anything like that. His perspective is so great from in that story. He talks about how when you live in a city and there's all this hustle and bustle and all this stuff, it's easy to think, man, doomsday's coming. The world's ending. But he's like, then you ride a bus across America, you realize there's all sorts of open space. And guess what? Most people are really nice. You could go anywhere and have a nice meal and people will be nice to you and they'll talk to you and they, all that stuff. So I thought it was great perspective, especially for these times that we live in now, and very cool to reread that retrospectively. So rest in peace to John Madden. Definitely a if not one of the most impactful guys in NFL history. Coach, let's talk about some of the stuff that happened over the weekend. First of all, the most unforgettable scene yesterday. It's one that wants to make you chuckle, but then you kind of think, what's actually going on? Antonio Brown left the field without his shirt on, without his pads on, without his helmet on. And then he's taking he's got an Uber ready for him to leave the stadium. He's dropping music videos. This is just the continuation of a saga, which is at the same time sort of hilarious if you don't take it too seriously, but it's actually a serious situation because there's obviously something going on with this guy. He's definitely not right in the head. But I've never seen anything like that. In an NFL game, the guy is, usually the streaker is the drunk guy, from the stands, not the former all-pro wide receiver.
Help!
That's exactly right.
H-E-L-P. When something like that occurs, and I've been around a few things, okay, what's happening here? And you immediately go to like Tom Brady. All right.
Right.
How do we sort of make this thing better or help this young man? Right? Something happened there. Something's going on. I don't think it's a big secret. Some things have been going on for quite some time, but it looks to me like H-E-L-P now. And so, you asked me on the break if I've ever seen anything like it. I've seen some things close to it, but I've had some stories of some coaches who were there in college at a practice where some of this type of things happened. And even back then, even 20 years ago, common sense tells you, okay, time out here. What's happening with this young man? And let's get some help.
Well, Bruce Arians, he buried this thing right away because he basically cut him at the postgame press conference, said he doesn't play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers anymore. But then he also was asked today if he regrets signing him, and he said, no, I don't, and I hope he gets the help he needs. But there's been a lot of enigmatic and sort of controversial personalities throughout the years in the NFL, particularly guys that play wide receiver. I don't know why it is the wide receivers that seem to always be, kind of the kooky ones. But what's your perspective on taking high-risk guys? Because I do think if you have Tom Brady on your team and Tom Brady says, I want this guy, you probably go get him and then just let it play itself out no matter however it does. But on the other hand, sometimes guys like this can be a giant distraction if you don't have the right locker room, right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. A couple things come into my mind, Coulter. Where would any of us be, or at least most of us be, without second or third chances?
Right.
Now, there's a line, right? There's a line that you can't cross to get a second or third or even fourth chance. But where would we all be without those second or third or even fourth chances? That's first. Second, I know that they had a deal worked out with them. Look it, you cross the line, my line, as they go, one time you're gone. And he sort of did that with the fake vaccination type thing.
Right.
I don't know the details there. So suspended for 3 weeks, if I remember right. And then, all right, one more time. And something happened, probably verbally on the sideline, that tricked his and then all of a sudden the naked thing happened. And so HELPNOW.
That's exactly right. Monday afternoon quarterback, Friday morning wake in studio with me, Colter Nuanez, going through all of what happened this last weekend in the NFL. Who clinched? Who got eliminated? Who remains alive? We'll go through all the playoff scenarios next. Keep it right here, ESPN Radio.
Introducing Sportsbet Montana, powered by the Montana Lottery. Join in the excitement of Sportsbet Montana by betting on your favorite sports and teams, both collegiate and professional, including NFL, NBA, MLB, MMA, NASCAR, and more. There are multiple ways to bet, including in-game, which gets you in on the action live as the game unfolds, and parlay betting, where you have the chance to win big. Sportsbet Montana is secure and interactive. Learn more at sportsbetmontana.com.
Part of the glory of building a business comes from leaving a legacy to ensure your business continues thriving into the future. Have you asked yourself lately, what is your plan? Forming a personalized business succession plan is essential to know the passion you put into your business will carry on. Nick Tabor at Westpac Wealth is here to help you navigate all your business succession and retirement planning needs. Give Nick a call at 728-6699 and keep the spirit of possibility vibrant while making your future more tax efficient with a personalized business succession and retirement plan for you.
Is 2022 the year you're finally ready to step up your hair game? If you're not sure where to go, look no farther than Compass Barbershop, a modern barbershop for everyone, where they can help you find a style that's right for you. Offering precision scissor cuts and fades in a unique and inclusive atmosphere, Compass Barbershop has it all, including convenient online booking at compassbarber.com. Step up your hair game in 2022. Find your way to Compass Barbershop, downtown on the Hip Strip, at the corner of modern and retro.
We love sports because of the competition, but there's a stark reality when it comes to sports at all levels of sports, particularly professional and collegiate sports. It's a business. It's about money. Every other Tuesday here on Nuanez Now, we present to you a business angle with Justin Angle, a professor of business at the University of Montana Business School, a conversation about the overlay between business and sports.
I think the evidence probably overrides that concern to a large degree. So many people are participating in sports betting, and probably the upsides that ESPN and others in this space are looking at with regard to the wide variety of really engaging customer experiences they could create. People are already sort of surfing their phones and watching analysis real time while they're watching a game, whether it's Twitter hot takes or whatever. If you're able to sort of engage in this prop betting in real time, it's going to make the games just much more engaging.
Catch a business angle with Justin Angle every other Tuesday on Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Welcome back. Happy Monday, everybody. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as SWX Montana Television. The Monday afternoon quarterback with Coach Marty continues. Marty Morningweg, longtime NFL coach, former Grizz quarterback, in studio with me, Colter Nuanez. Hope everybody's having a happy new year. One piece of breaking news outside of the world of football. This just went down. The Montana State basketball doubleheader had been moved from Saturday to Sunday because the Bobcats play in the FCS National Championship on Saturday. Well, now, at least on the women's side, no games this week. The MSU women's basketball games scheduled for Thursday against Idaho and Sunday against Montana have been postponed due to COVID-19 protocols. This is from Parker Cotton of the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. So that's incredibly unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate that that's the case, but it is what it is. More on the NFL, though. Let's talk about some of the teams that sewed it up. Here's where we're at. We had a lot of clinches over the weekend. The Green Bay Packers clinched the NFC North. Cincinnati Bengals clinched the AFC North. Tennessee Titans are the champions of the AFC South. The Kansas City Chiefs are the winners of the AFC West despite winning what was a crazy game, or losing, a crazy game to those Bengals. Dallas has sewed up the AFC East, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after Antonio Brown got naked, figured out a way to win the game, and they sewed up the NFC South. So those are your 6 division winners. That means, for those counting at home, the AFC West remains up for grabs, as does the AFC West and the NFC West remain up for grabs. No, excuse me, the Chiefs have clinched the AFC West. But still, 2 divisions remain open. The other teams that have clinched playoffs, the AFC East, the Bills and the Patriots are still in contention for the AFC East. And both New England, Philadelphia, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Arizona Cardinals have all clinched spots as well. Teams that have already been eliminated: the Dolphins, the Jets, the Browns, the Texans, the Jaguars, the Broncos, the Washington Football Team, the New York Giants, the Minnesota Vikings, the Chicago Bears, Detroit Lions, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, and Seattle Seahawks. And the teams that are still alive that have not clinched anything include the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who play each other on Sunday. Indianapolis, who dropped one to the Raiders, which was a sort of a heartbreaker. That keeps the Raiders back in it. The Chargers and the Raiders are both alive, and they play on Sunday Night Football. And then you also have the Saints and the 49ers. So, Coach, we have about 5.5 minutes left here, but I got a couple broad questions for you about this time of year. First of all, this is the first year that the NFL's played an 18-week season. What do you think of that?
I like it.
Yeah.
Up to date.
Right.
I mean, there are some win and you get in type of scenarios. I thought it was an exciting year. I don't know of any negatives. Do you, Coulter, on the...
Maybe just player health, but I guess it's the NFL, so like you have a chance of getting hurt every time from training camp in March to now, right? I mean, every time you play football, you have a chance to get hurt. So,
and then guys were out with the COVID thing. I think some of the better teams learned to sort of deal with that and overcome injuries and the COVID thing. You know, the one thing that clicks in my mind, I remember after week 1, we were talking about the Green Bay Packers and their great quarterback and the drama. Well, they've clinched and they probably get the number 1 seed. And then the great Kansas City Chiefs ball club.
Right.
They were 3-4 at some point. We talked about
right.
them. And we both said, look, they're not going anywhere.
That's right.
There will be no surprise when they're deep in the playoffs.
Well, what do you think of that element of it when it comes to the Green Bay Packers? Because Green Bay clinched their 3rd straight 13-win season. That's the first time that's ever happened in NFL history. That's amazing. 13 wins, 3 years in a row. I mean, most players, coaches would, you probably had a 13-win season or 2 in your career, right? But those are unforgettable seasons when you go 13-3, right?
Yeah, and I think the longest winning streak was 11, I believe.
Right.
And then we had one in 10 to win the Super Bowl. But, those are great years. How consistent is that? And it goes, I'm telling you, it goes back to the quarterback.
Yeah.
You look at the quarterbacks for some of these teams. Green Bay, Cincy, a great young quarterback.
He's lights out, man. Joe Burrow he looked like coming of age yesterday. Looked like one of the best players in the league.
He's taken a bad to mediocre team. Now, they've built that team up.
For sure.
Built it up. But he got them over the hump.
Well, and that's a tough division to win, too. I mean, you're winning that. I mean, they were the team that I think most of the experts, quote unquote, had last in that division, and they win it.
Yeah.
Not the Browns, not the Steelers, not the Ravens. So that's a great job by both Zach Taylor and by Joe Burrow in that offense.
Yeah, and you got quarterbacks with the Chiefs, with the Cowboys, the great Tom Brady with the Buccaneers. I mean, these are great quarterbacks.
For sure.
Right? The Tennessee quarterback, I think, is pretty good. But they've got that running game and defense.
That's right.
To go with that ball club.
Well, you also your last stint in the NFL was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and you were a big advocate for Jalen Hurts. You thought he could really play. Kid out of Oklahoma won the Heisman, and there was a lot of, some people thought so, some people thought not. They didn't think he was going to translate to the NFL game. I think that's one of the greatest undertold stories in the league this year. Is the Philadelphia Eagles are in the playoffs while riding Jalen Hurts all the way to the playoffs.
Yeah, really, that was what I did, was train the rookie quarterback, and in part he's there because of my evaluation as well. I just thought he was built the right way. Now, when we drafted him, I thought it might be year 3.
Sure.
Right? He hit it big in year 2. In fact, I texted him, it must have been yesterday.
Yeah.
Congratulations, and then in capital letters, on leading your team to the playoffs, because That's a congratulatory type of situation. You are a young quarterback in the NFL, and you lead your team into the playoffs, and I put your season has just started. And so now it's a whole new season. It is a tournament. You win, and you keep moving on to the Super Bowl.
About 1 minute left here on the Monday Afternoon Quarterback with Coach Marty Morningweg in studio with us. Thanks to Brett's RV and Marine for being the proud sponsor of the Monday Afternoon Quarterback. Big games on the horizon. Dallas at Philly. That's got playoff implications. Pittsburgh at Baltimore is a playoff game, basically. Win, you're in, lose, you're out. And same thing with the Los Angeles Chargers against the Las Vegas Raiders. So big games on the horizon. We can't wait to recap all of those for you. Missed anything in the show today, whether it was the Montana Football Hour or the Monday Afternoon Quarterback, it's all available on the Nuanez Now podcast, proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications and Sportsbet Montana. Whole bunch of great guests coming up for you throughout the rest of the week. Brooks Nuanez, Sky on Sports, going to swing by. Sam Herder from Hero Sports. Matt Entz, the head coach of North Dakota State. Brent Vigen, the head coach of Montana State. We're also going to hear from MSU players Troy Anderson, Tommy Malott, Lance McCutcheon, and Daniel Hardy. And we'll get some basketball coverage going, too, although might get derailed now that women's game's not on the docket. So we'll see. But maybe some upcoming women's basketball, but certainly some upcoming men's basketball as well. Coach, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate you, and love hanging out with you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody out there. Coulter, travel safe to Texas. Stay out of the pool halls. Have a great time. I can't say it, but I'm kind of rooting for the fellas from the state of Montana.
Hey, that's okay. It's okay to be there. We'll be back with you at 4 o'clock tomorrow. See you then. Hey, it's Coulter Nuanez from Nuanez Now, here with Brent Wahlberg of the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate.